Hello everyone, let's talk about this year's Eurovision so far. As of when I'm filming this, it is Friday afternoon, so we have seen the first two semi-finals, but not yet the grand final, and I want to chat about my thoughts. Now, as per usual, I think it's likely that I will split this up into three videos: semi-final part 1, semi-final part 2, and the grand final. So let's start with semi-final part 1. For once, I took notes on my phone. I think I was busy doing something else. I don't know what was happening, but I didn't like it very much. I always take notes on my pen and paper, and yeah, I wasn't a fan of this, but it is what it is. It's fine. Luckily, it was quite recent, so I can remember things that I may not have written down or noted quite right. Now, before it even began, initial thoughts. First of all, I did make myself a cup of tea, by the way, but I finished it. I took so long and had many other things to do to prep, so that's it. That's a shame. But yes, before it started, initially I really didn't feel like it was coming up. Like, usually I'm getting excited and, I'm like, oh, it's next week, or oh, it's so soon. And this time I really, it kind of just happened. Suddenly it was Tuesday the 12th. But yeah, kind of unexpected. And also, I do feel like the energy around it, especially this year, obviously the last few years, but especially this year, has really not been very nice. And I just think that's a shame. It's meant to be a competition where it's not really a competition, it's just a bit of fun and we're showing unity. And it's just got quite political in the last few years, and that makes me sad. And as I say, the last few years anyway haven't been as nice, and there was the year that Joost was disqualified, which was really awful. And then this year Holland's not even participating. For those of you who don't know, I'm Dutch originally and I always root for Holland. So it's very sad to have no Holland to root for, as well as the other countries. Yeah, it's just a shame. It just makes me sad. But anyway, it started. And I thought the opening with the couple was so sweet and also so sad. I was like, that's not necessary. We don't need that. But it was very sweet. And then almost immediately, I just wrote, I will always miss Petra and Mans. And I don't think I realized just how relevant that would be at the very start. But as the two semi-finals have gone on, it's become more and more relevant, I would say. And then I did have to laugh when they made the announcement about the big four instead of the big five. I mean, laugh and cry, because obviously I'm sad, but I did think it was funny. Then we began with Moldova. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am a big fan of Moldova most years. I love what they enter, and they've not been in it for at least 1 year, maybe more. So I was just happy that they were back. But then it started, and I just wrote, this is mental, I love it already. And then I wrote, I hope it becomes their new anthem. And then as it continued, I just wrote, this is ridiculous, but I love it. I just had a really good time with it. I don't think it was the most amazing song ever, but it was fun and I enjoyed it and it was Moldovan and I just hope they do well. Then it was Sweden, and the first thing I wrote was, I don't love the opening so far. I cannot remember really what the opening was, so we'll see how that continues. But I did then write, I don't usually love techno music, to be fair. So obviously it must have been in that style, in that genre, and it wasn't really for me. Then I wrote that I love that the big reveal was her wearing a different mask, because it went there was this big dramatic moment, and it just went from her wearing a mask like this to a mask like this, which I just think Eurovision's done so many more fun and clever things that it was just funny to me that that was the big reveal. And then I wrote, it didn't really feel like a Sweden song, but more like a Spanish entry or that kind of vein. But maybe that's just recent years, I don't know. Then Croatia, my first note is just, she's floating. And then I wrote, I like that it's traditional. And then there were comments basically. I was watching this on YouTube where there was a comment feed going along, and all the comments were saying voice crack, but I must have missed it because I don't remember noticing it or anything. And at the end I just wrote, cool. Then Greece, I wrote, I don't really know what's happening here. I think it's trying to be Eurovision but not really succeeding. I like the scooter. And then at the end I just wrote, I don't know what's going on. That one was one that it felt like it was close to being a song that I would really enjoy and a performance I would really enjoy, but there was just something about it that missed the mark and therefore made it a really, I don't know, it just annoyed me, the performance, rather than oh, this is funny, this is quirky, this is Eurovision, which is a shame because I do feel like it was so close. Moving on to Portugal, I wrote, ooh, I like the harmonies already. And then I wrote, I think I like this, but it's not quite what I was expecting. And then finally I just wrote, very controlled voices. Then Georgia, I just wrote, it sounds like Eurovision even before they've started singing. And my second note is just, I think I like it. Then there was a little interval bit where they were sort of flashing back, not back, but like flashing to various like fans and whatnot. And I thought it was very sweet that they included some of last year's contestants. I enjoyed that. And then they also had a moment where they sort of appreciated the sound crew, and I was very appreciative of that. I was like, yay, they included the sound crew, because I feel like a lot of backstage people don't get the recognition they deserve. And it's always nice when they do, especially at a place like Eurovision where there's so much happening and there's such a huge amount of work for the backstage crew. So yes, let's give them shout outs. Then they previewed Italy. Now with the ones where they preview, I do try and pay slightly less attention because I'm definitely going to see these in the final again. But I did write interesting start, very cool tricks. It's a bit of a fun one and a very cool dress. I think they like revealed the Italian flag and I was like, love that. That's great. Then Finland, and I think I'm going to have a very controversial opinion here, but I wrote, I think I like the song, but it doesn't really feel like much of a show. And then I wrote, I like the violin, and then I wrote, something always has to be on fire, doesn't it? Now, I feel like, I don't know what happened during this song, but I feel like I wasn't paying as much attention because I've seen so many tweets and comments and whatnot of Finland being a potential winner, and I don't even remember it. I don't feel like I was blown away or wowed or anything by it. But we'll see tomorrow night. We'll see what happens. Then for Montenegro, all I wrote was, I don't think this style is for me. And I cannot remember now if that was one of the pop ones or one of the like rock ones or one of the operatic ones. I don't know, or one of where it's a mix. But that's the only note I have. Then for Estonia, I wrote, I like the guitar. I saw a comment that said Disney teenage rock band song, and that's so true. And finally, I just wrote, I'm okay with it. Then we had Israel, and just before I talk about it, I want to preface this by saying I have always enjoyed Eurovision as a non-political event. I might root for Holland, but that doesn't mean I can't acknowledge that it's a bad song, and I might, not root for Australia, but that doesn't mean I can't acknowledge that it's a good song. So even though I might have opinions about how I feel about the country, I try to judge each entry as honestly as I can. So I'm just going to put that out there before I talk about Israel. And it started, and I was not expecting the song to be in Hebrew. For some reason, I don't know why. It didn't seem... I think it's because the name of the song was Michelle, and that's not even a sound you really make in Hebrew, so I just wasn't expecting it. But then it became French, and then I thought like maybe I'd confused myself, and it actually was French all along, so I got a bit confused. And then I wrote, this is like my reaction with Yuval. Oh, because I, also with Yuval, the... what was the name of the song? A New Day, Brand New Day Will Rise, something like that. I was also surprised every time she changed languages. But then I wrote, I like the dancers, and I do think I'd listen to this song more often, which I feel like this was maybe one of the first songs where I felt that. I was not wowed by the first semi-final, I'll say that. And this was a song that I was like, I could see myself putting this on a playlist and listening to it again. Then my mum called. So I think it was another one of the big five that was performing anyway. I think it might have been Germany. So I didn't really mind. I was like, good timing. But I don't know if I missed anything there. But then I did get back literally bang on time. It wasn't intentional because she wasn't watching Eurovision, but literally as she hung up, Belgium started. So that was good. And then I wrote, this reminds me of another Eurovision song, but I don't remember which. And there were some cool tricks again. Then Lithuania, I just wrote, interesting look. And then there was a bit where it had subtitles and it said maybe it would be better with subtitles. And I laughed at that, but I was also like confused because I had been looking at, Twitter and at the comments at the same time. So I was like, maybe there's been subtitles all this time and I've only just noticed it. But like, it's funny to me that I'm only noticing it now on the lines where it's referencing subtitles. But I think it was the first time they showed subtitles during the song, but I did think it was funny. Then it was San Marino, and I just wrote, this makes sense for San Marino. And then I also wrote, they always bring in someone. And finally, I like the fireworks. Then for Poland, I wrote, great voice, very cool dancers on an angle because they were on this steep incline and dancing and like standing still, which I thought was very impressive. And then finally, the note I've written is, don't think I love the performance, but like the performance. I think maybe I meant to write, don't think I love the song, but like the performance. I don't know. That's a weird note to have left. And finally for Serbia, I wrote vampire, ? And then quite near the end of the song, I wrote, I'm just about figuring out the tune of this. But it was just like one of those weird ones. And finally, again, I like the fire. That's one thing that if you've watched all my Eurovision videos over the years, anytime there's fire or fireworks or anything like that, pyrotechnics, I'm like, yes, I love it. And then they started the votes. And I always like to make a list of the top 10 I expect and the top 10 I would like. And so here are the top 10 of each. My personal top 10 were, well, I'll say the confident ones and then the questionable ones. Portugal, Georgia, Israel, Poland, Estonia, and then the 2 questionable ones, because I couldn't even get to 10, were Moldova and Croatia. I think I already said this, I didn't think this was a great first semi-final, to be honest. But we'll come back to that. And then for my expected top 10, this semi-final was so like underwhelming for me that I couldn't even come up with an expected top 10. So I've only got 9, and that is Moldova, Sweden, Croatia, Portugal, Finland, Poland, and then with a question mark, Georgia, Estonia, and Serbia. And then my next note is actually, watching back, I don't think this was a great semi-final. And then they did a big like circus act as an intermission bit, and I did like that. I thought it was cool to see all the circus tricks. And then I wrote, I did like the Austria versus Australia gimmick in theory, but I really didn't like that it wasn't being sung live, and also it went on for a really long time, and I was like, okay, we can wrap it up now. Then the results began, and the first thing I said to Wayne when the results began was, I hope it's not Greece. And what do you know? The first one that was announced was Greece. Then Finland went through and I wrote, I can't really remember what that one was. Then, then they recapped it and I was like, oh yeah, I was expecting that. Then I said I was very surprised by Belgium. Then, yes, of course, Sweden always goes through. Then, yes, Moldova. And that was the first one I was like actually happy about. I was like, yes, that one I wanted to get through. Then for Israel, I just wrote that was expected. Then Serbia went through and I wrote I was actually expecting Serbia. And then Wayne was kind of at that point saying, I really want Estonia. And so at that point, even though I hadn't felt anything particular for Estonia, at that point I started really rooting for them too. I was like, yes, come on, Estonia. Then I wrote, oh yeah, I'm okay with Croatia. And then there were a couple, I think maybe at this point there were 2 or 3 left. And I wrote, I'm rooting for Portugal of the remaining ones. And then it was Lithuania. So I wrote, oh, I was not expecting Lithuania. And then finally, oh, okay, Poland. And then I wrote, but overall, I'm not super happy with these results. So I just want to check of the ones I said, which ones were right. Okay, so interestingly, as I'm checking this, I realized I didn't actually put Israel as my expected 10, even though I knew it would go through. So of the ones I wanted, which admittedly I only said 7, there were only 4 that went through. And of the ones I expected, it was only 6. Well, maybe 7 if you include Israel. But yeah, not great numbers for me. I usually do better, but we shall see what happens in the final and also in the second semi-final, which I will film for you now, but will probably only be uploaded, I think, next week. So I will see you in that video. Let me know your thoughts on the first Eurovision semi-final if you watched it. Obviously, by the time you're watching this, it's been a little while. But let me know if you watched it, if you had any favourites that didn't make it through or any ones that you weren't expecting that did make it through, if you agree with some of the things I've said. And I'll see you all in another video very soon. Bye!